Hi everyone. I just wanted to get on here today and tell my story of domestic abuse. And I've been listening to domestic abuse and domestic violence videos. I've been watching them and they've inspired me to tell my story as well. So I wanted to get on here and do that today. I've been procrastinating. I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but I've been procrastinating because it's a very, very long story. I was in 13 years in this marriage, and so I was thinking of making two videos, but I don't want to split it into two videos because every time I do a two-part video, I see more views on one part than the other, and that drives me crazy. So, because I think that you need to see the whole thing, and then when I see videos that have more views, my two-part videos have one has more views than the other, it's like you're not getting the whole story. So I'm just going to do this on one video and please bear with me. Please get some hot chocolate. I'm going to try to condense it as much as I can and give you mostly the high points, which actually are the lowest points of the marriage. So, disclaimer, there is, if you are triggered by substance abuse, if you are triggered by domestic violence in any way. And there's also going to be something in here about abortion. So if you're triggered by any of that, and it's raw. This is going to be raw because I'm going to tell it just like it is. I'm going to tell the truth. And so if you're triggered by any of that, please, by all means, please do not watch this video. Okay, so let me get right into it because it's a long story. Okay, so this takes starts in this is real old. This is a long, long time ago. Um, right after high school in 1978. I got to give you a little backstory. I moved to Maryland to be with my sister. My sister is 2 years older than me, and I'm from Massachusetts, but I moved to Maryland, and because I wanted to be with her, I wanted to be away from home. And I had visited her previously and I met a gentleman. So I was, of course, 18 and naive. And I was like, head over heels with this gentleman. So I moved to Maryland. I lived with my sister, and her and her husband actually lived in this guy's house with his parents, and he lived there too. We lived downstairs, he lived upstairs with his parents, and they were in a band. My sister's husband and this guy that I was very much attracted to was in a band. And so another band member was Bobby. I'm going to call him Bobby. He and the guy that I was attracted to, I'm gonna call him drummer because he was the drummer in the band. Okay, so now my sister's husband, Bobby, and drummer, they were all good friends, and they were all in this band, and we used to go watch them play and all this stuff. And I was like seeing the drummer, I was seeing drummer, and but drummer played me because drummer had a girlfriend behind my back in Massachusetts. So while I was seeing him, he was with me one night and he says, "Oh, I'm gonna go pick up um I'm gonna call her Susie. I'm gonna go pick up Susie." And I'm like, "What? Yeah, I'm gonna go pick up Susie at the train station." And he just left me, and then all of a sudden Susie was there. And there was no warning. I didn't know what was going on, and he just like cut me out flat. And all of a sudden his real girlfriend was there. And so I had to just drop him. They ended up getting married and everything. So I just like dropped him. So when I dropped him, drummer's brother, drummer's brother wife, drummer's brother's wife, came to me and she says, "Why don't you go out with Bobby? He's so nice. Bobby is so, so nice. Go out with Bobby. He's a lot of fun. Everybody loves him." And now Bobby sang and played congas in the band. And so I was not attracted to Bobby. I was never ever attracted to Bobby. I did not want to go out with Bobby, but she was like, yeah, she's edging me on, edging me on. So I have different lessons as you go along in my story. So this is lesson number one. Never, ever let somebody tell you or coerce you into going out with somebody that you don't want to go out with. If you are not feeling it, if you are not attracted to them, just don't do it. Just don't go out with them. So I went out with them, and it's it's no big surprise that I went out with him, ended up going out with him because I was like I had like siblings that were like narcissistic, and like I would always do what they tell me to do, and I had very low self-esteem. So, it's not a big surprise that I would just do it, even though it was against my better judgment, it was against my will, and I just did it. So I go out with Bobby. So me and Bobby are dating, and as we're dating, he picked me up one day, and here's one red flag. He picked me up one day, and in the evening, and we were going out, and in his van he had cough syrup, okay? And he started drinking the cough syrup, and I'm like, why are you drinking cough syrup? And he's like, oh, I have a cold, and this just helps me. But I noticed he like just kept sipping on the cough syrup, and that raised a red flag for me, but I ignored it. I didn't know anything. I came from the country. Was raised in a house where there was no drugs. There was nothing. I was never around any of that stuff. So I didn't know that that was a sign of like possible drug addiction. I had no idea. I'm like, well, this is how he takes cough syrup. And me, I was never like, I was a stickler for not taking drugs. I hated drugs, like even like medications, prescriptions, aspirin, even aspirin. I did not like taking aspirin, nothing. So, and if I took cough syrup, I definitely would like follow the instructions and take teaspoon at a time. You know what I mean? So like, but I just let it go over my head, and I just ignored it. I ignored that red flag. Okay. Um, the second red flag. Okay, I was at his house, and we were sitting on his steps, and he lived with his parents. So we were sitting on the steps, and he had these handcuffs. So he goes, let me handcuff you. Let me handcuff you. And I was like, no, no. And he's like, come on. So I put my hands behind my back, and he handcuffed me, and I'm sitting there on the steps outside with my hands cuffed behind my back, and I'm like, come on, take them off, take them off. And he's like, no. And he's like laughing, and I'm getting very uncomfortable, and I feel restricted, and I had handcuffs on. And so his father comes outside, and he walks by us, and I'm like, can you please tell him to take the handcuffs cuffs off me? Said to his father, and his father like started snickering and giggling, and he didn't do anything about it. So he just walks into the house, and now I'm sitting there with handcuffs on, and his father didn't even help me. So so finally he takes the handcuffs off. Okay, so that was red flag number two. So that basically was that summed up our entire relationship for 13 years. He was abusive, like he just didn't care about my feelings, and he just did whatever he wanted to me, and he was a drug addict for real, real. Okay, so now I get pregnant. I end up getting pregnant while we're dating, and so we were married. So like from 79, we weren't even dating for a year. I end up pregnant. So in 1980, um, we got married, and I was 6 months pregnant. And he didn't want to marry me, but his mother, she was a church going lady, and she wanted us to be married. So she talked to him about marriage. She goes, you have to get married. You can't be bringing a baby into the world and all this stuff, and you're not married, and you have to get married, because she was a church lady, and her church people, you know what I mean? Her church folk, her church people. And so that was important for her to be married, for us to be married. And so, and I was kind of glad that she did talk to him because I really didn't want to bring a child into the world without being married as well. Okay, so we get married, and just from the day of our wedding on, it was the same. Okay, so let me just take a sip of my um, hot chocolate. So we were married, and the day of our wedding, he kind of like, it didn't feel like I never felt like a wife. We never had that type of relationship where a close relationship, a loving relationship. We were just existing. We were just existing in a marriage. And he was just doing whatever he wanted. And I was trying to be the wife, you know? But he didn't take me seriously, and he didn't really have that kind of love for me. You know what I mean? And I don't think that he really could have love for anyone because he was consumed in drugs and everything else. And so yeah, so we were at our wedding, and we got married at his mother's house in the backyard. They fixed it all up, invited friends and family, and I wore a wedding gown. Somebody made me a wedding gown. Actually, Drummer's mother, she sewed, so she made me a wedding gown. And Drummer was the best man at our wedding. Okay, Drummer, the guy that I used to see and I was so in love with, Drummer was the best man at our wedding. So, because they were like best friends. So, yeah. So we were in his room where he was with his friends. He hung out in his room with his friends on our wedding day. And so I went and sat on the bed. They were watching a game or something on TV. And then there was a girl in there who was good friends with him too. He worked for her father. So that was cause for me to be a little jealous because they were like buddy buddy. So it was messed up. So fast forward, um, we move into an apartment and move into an apartment and I was pregnant with my first child. Okay, we had three children together, and I was pregnant with my first child, and I was working, and he went to pick me up. I was working, and I went to I had to go to Drummer's house for some reason, and he picked me up there. And when he picked me up, I can't remember if I was pregnant or just had my first baby, and she might have been babysitting, and I picked my son up from her house. I can't remember exactly, but he picks me up from that house, and Drummer was there, and Drummer was talking to me. Okay, it was nothing. Drummer was saying something to me. I don't know, but there were people in the room, and everybody was talking. And so, when we drove off from that house, he was burning, and I had no idea that he was like really mad, but he was so mad because Drummer was talking to me. And so that was my first. We were sitting in the car, and he's saying, "What was you saying? What was you like?" He was like asking me what was Drummer saying to me and all this stuff. And I'm like, nothing, nothing. We were just talking, nothing. And so I got a backhand across my mouth, bang, right across my mouth. And I sat there, and I was in shock. That was my first slap. I'm sure, pretty sure that everybody who has been abused can remember their very first encounter, their very first slap or punch or choke or whatever. Okay. So that was my very first slap. And I was sitting there in the car, and I was like in shock. No one had ever done that to me before. I was like, what just happened? I was confused. I was in shock. I was scared out of my mind. And then he kept driving, and my lip, I just kept going like this. I could feel my lip, and my lip was so sore, and I could feel it. So we got home, And that was that. And then time continued. Okay, so while we were in that apartment, I'm just going to tell you things that would happen. We moved from place to place, and there's something that happened in every place that we live, so I'm going to go over those things that stand out in my mind the most. So what happened in that apartment while we lived there, um he would talk on the phone with this girl. Her name was I'm just gonna say her name because she don't know me. Who cares? This was 100 years ago, and I'm gonna give her real name because I have to give her real name. Her name was Veronica, and he dated her in high school or something, right? So he would be talking to her on the phone. He would be in the bedroom on the phone, and that's in the old days where we didn't have cell phones. We just had the house phone. So he would be talking on the house phone in the bedroom. We had a phone in the bedroom, a phone in the kitchen. So I would hear him talking, right? And I could hear him, like I would be like in the bedroom doorway, and I would be listening, and I could hear him talking to her, and I would be like, he is like really talking to a girl, whatever, right? So I go into the kitchen and I pick up the phone a little bit, and I hear them talking, and then I click down the phone a little bit, right? And then he'd come out of the bedroom, and here's what he would be singing. He'd be singing, "My heart belongs to Ronnie. She's my favorite girl." And there's actually a song like that. Ronnie, I don't remember who the band is that sang that back in the day, but there's actually a song like that. But he was singing that about Ronnie. He would, because he used to call her Ronnie, and so he finally told me that it's just a girl, Ronnie. He wouldn't tell me at first, but I kept badgering, and he finally told me it's just a girl. Her name is Ronnie, and we were friends in high school. It's no big deal. It's nothing to worry about. It's nothing. She's just a friend, whatever. But he had been singing all along, "My Heart Belongs to Ronnie," around the house to let me know. So that was like really cruel. Okay, so another thing that happened in our marriage there at the apartment is he had a gun he had a gun in his room, in our bedroom, and now and he just picked it up and he pointed it to me. And I was walking around the bed and he's pointing the gun at me and laughing. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Stop it. Don't point that at me. Come on, stop playing around. Don't point that at me." And he's pointing it at me and he's just following me around the room with the pointing the gun at me. And I was like so scared. I was like so scared he was gonna like shoot me. And he was just laughing and it was like a big joke to him. It's just like he wanted to torture me and scare me. And so then he finally like put it down. Um Another thing, okay, so he had been smoking. Like he would get up and he would like smoke a joint in the bedroom or whatever, or in the bathroom, and then come out and I could smell it. I could smell the weed. And I was like, oh my God, I can't. I hated drugs, y'all. I hated it. And I could not stand the smell of weed, okay? Could not stand it. It scared me to death. Okay, so I would be smelling it and I would like not wanting to breathe and everything. And he would be sitting there high on weed watching Frederick Price on TV, which is like Frederick Price was a and I don't know if he still is. I think his son does it too. Like a preacher on TV, big preacher on television. And I thought like, oh, maybe he's godly or whatever, but it wasn't real. It wasn't serious, okay? I think he was trying, but I mean, he's so engulfed in drugs and stuff, so he couldn't get past that. Okay, so then one day in that place, he was smoking weed and he would go out and hang out, get high, come home high, and all this kind of stuff, right? And he acted like he was a single dude, okay? Because he would just go out, do whatever he want, come home whenever you want. Never answered to me, never told me what he was doing, never said, "Hey, babe, I'm going." It wasn't that type of marriage. It was like he just was married to me, but I was just there. And he just lived his life as a single person, basically. Okay, so he just went out, did whatever he wanted. So he would go out and get high. Okay, so one day he came home, and he was high. He had been smoking PCP, okay? And And I had my oldest son. He was just still a toddler in a crib. And he tripped off of this PCP that he was smoking, and that um he thought he was in war. He thought he was in a war, and he thought that a bomb went off, like an atomic bomb, and he couldn't breathe. So this is what he's tripping off of. And so it it goes off onto, like, so it affects me and my baby, right? So he goes in the bedroom and he's walking back and forth. I'm like, what is wrong? And I'm naive to drugs. I don't know what the heck's going on. What's happening with him right now? What's going on? And so he's walking back and forth in the house. Finally, he goes, we got to get out of here. We got to get, he's in his underwear. And I'm following him. I'm pacing behind him. What is wrong? What are you talking about? What's going on? And he's pacing back and forth. We got to get out of here. We got to get out of here. And so he goes in the bedroom and gets my baby. He gets our toddler out of the crib and he's holding him. And oh my God, I was so frantic. I was freaking out. And he goes in there and he gets the toddler, my oldest son, and he's carrying him. He's like, we got to get out of here. And he's pacing back and forth with the baby. And now he's got the baby in his arms. He's got his underwear on and he's now he's thinking he's going to go outside. He's got his hand on the door and he's going to go outside so that he can breathe. We can breathe. And he thinks he's saving our baby, right? From this war, from this atomic bomb that just went off. This is really happening, you all. This is like happening. Okay. And so he goes outside. He goes out. He never makes it outside because I'm talking him down. I'm trying to talk him down. Okay. And so I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Nothing's happening right now. It's okay. We're fine. We're fine. Please give me the baby. And I'm like, please. Please. And so he gets his hand away from the door. He walks away from the door. And so, but he's still frantic. And I'm like, and he's facing me, he's looking at me, and he's got the baby. And I'm like, please give it, please just give him to me. Please give him to me. Please give me the baby. Please give me the baby. Please give him to me. Please give him to me. And finally, he lets me take the baby. Okay. I think he's coming down now. Okay. I call his mother and father, and I'm like, please come over here right now. Your son is tripping. He took some kind of drug. I don't know what he took. I don't know what's going on. And he keeps trying to leave out of the house, and like all these things are going on. And I am so scared. So please come. They're like, okay, fine. We'll be right there. They were like maybe a 15-20 minute drive away. Right. Okay, so time is passing by, and I'm like, so I call them back. I'm like, can you please, are you on your way? Can you please come? No, it's probably like a 15-minute drive. Can you please come? Hurry up, please hurry up. And his mother's like, we're coming. We got to get our clothes on first, right? And she was kind of annoyed with me, but I didn't care. Like, I was freaking afraid, and I don't know what was going on. So I called them. So, and here I am, like a little kid. I'm still a young kid, okay? Like I'm still like 19, 20 years old. I'm a baby myself. Like I don't know what's happening. So so they come in they come to the house. They walk in, and by the time they walk in, he's calmed down. He's down and he's like sitting down on the couch. And they're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he's talking to them. He's like, I took some PCP and he's acting like it was like he was just smoking weed and somebody laced it, and he didn't know that it was in there. Okay, so God knows the truth. I don't know if he knew what he was taking or if it was laced and he didn't know. I have no idea till this day the truth about that. But so he was on PCP, he said, and all this stuff. But how do you know if you're on PCP if it was laced and you don't know? You know what I mean? Like you had to have known. Like now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, he knew. So so that happened. So I was so scared. Okay, I was so scared, and with this man, and I didn't know. Now I'm in flight or fight mode. Now here comes, this is how PTSD builds up, and you're on fight and flight mode, and you're on pins and needles every freaking day of your life. Okay, every day of your life. So so now that's the mode I'm in, and so I say, I want to go home. I tell him, I want to go home. I want to go back to Massachusetts. Okay, so now we had like a second baby. Now we're on our third, we had a third baby. And so the first baby was born in 2018. No, I'm sorry. What am I saying? In 1980. He was born in 1980. Okay, so my oldest boy. And then I had a second boy. He was born in 81. They're a year and 4 days apart from each other. 81. Okay, so then I had a baby girl in 1983, and we were all had all those kids while we were at that apartment. Okay, so I want to go home. I want to go home. And so my third baby, we went home after we had her. He's like, fine, that's okay, let's go. And I'm like, really, really? And I was so relieved. I was so happy. I'm like, I could not even believe that he listened to me. I couldn't even believe that he did what I wanted, what I wanted. Okay. So we go home. We moved to Massachusetts in 1983. We live with my mom and dad. Okay. So we're living with my mom and dad. And we live with my mom and dad, and he's good for a while. Like, there's no drama. He's in check because, of course, we're living with my mom and dad. Okay. So then, um, so, oh, did I tell you lesson number two? Lesson number two was the red flags. Don't ignore the red flags. The two red flags that I told you at the beginning, red flags. I have notes because I don't want to forget anything. Okay. So now, lesson number three is, just because you move someone to a new environment doesn't mean they're going to stop their behavior. Okay? It doesn't matter. We could have moved anywhere and it would not stop his behavior. And I thought, okay, now we're moving. He doesn't have any of his old friends. He's not going to know where to get drugs. He's just going to stop. Everything's going to be wonderful. But let me tell you, after we moved there, he found the new people. He snuffed it out. Okay. He found out where to get drugs. He found out everything. And he had never been there before. Isn't that amazing? Like, that blows my mind. Because a drug addict will find drugs, okay? All right. So, we lived with my mom for a while, then we moved to an apartment, okay? So we moved to an apartment, and it was uncomfortable there. I was always on pins and needles. He was still getting high. He found things to get high. He was still doing smoking weed or whatever. But while we were there, he started talking to this guy. This guy that was a Jehovah's Witness. Okay, this older man. He'd come to the apartment, and he would talk to him about the Bible and about Jehovah's Witness, right? And we had it upstairs and a downstairs. So I would be upstairs listening at the top of the stairs. I'm like, why is he talking to that Jehovah's Witness? Why is he talking to him? Because when I was little, my mother always used to like lock the door when they came around, Jehovah's Witness. She used to like lock the door. My mother would like literally shut the blinds. I mean, she would draw the curtains and be like, no, I don't want them coming, be quiet. And she would tell us to shh, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet, because she didn't want them to hear us in the house. Okay. So yeah. So that was on my mind. So I'm like, my mother didn't like us talking to Jehovah's Witnesses, so I don't understand. I think they're bad. I think this is a bad thing. So why is he talking to this Jehovah's Witness? So so that passed, and he didn't keep talking to the Jehovah's Witness. Now, for some reason, we couldn't afford our apartment, and we ended up having to leave, and me and him got separated. We got separated, and I went to stay with my mother. So we separated for 6 months, and I stayed with my mother. And then during that 6 month time, I did see someone that was attracted to me. I did date someone for like 6 months. I liked him. No, I didn't date him for 6 months. I dated him for like a couple, 2 to 3 months maybe. And then he moved to California but he wasn't really serious. So then my heart was kind of broken and I was like, oh, I'm never going to find a nice guy. Well, blah, blah, blah. So then, in the 6 month period that we were separated, like in this around the 6 month, him and I started talking again, and I started thinking maybe I should go back to my husband because the Bible says to stick with your husband and blah blah blah. So I said maybe I should go back to him, and so I talked to my mother, and she said, "All right, fine, he can come stay." So he came back to live with me at my mother's house, and we got back together. Lesson 4. Do not go back to your marriage if you were abused unless you know that Jesus told you to go back, and unless you know that he has been transformed by Jesus and you can see it and you can be a witness to it. And please, like, because know what it reminded me of? Because it got like 10 times worse after that. 10 times worse. Oh man, it went downhill so fast, it's not even funny. Okay, so it reminded me of, the scripture that says that if a demon leaves a host or whatever, and if you don't clean your host, if you don't clean up, they'll come back with 7 more demons. That's what it was like. Okay, so while we're at my mother's house, he gets this new job, and okay, he starts fooling around with some girl on this new job. Okay, so and I got, I couldn't prove it. I wasn't 100% sure, but I could kind of feel it. And guess what? He cheated on me so much. He cheated on me so much in our marriage, and I used to dream that he was cheating on me all the time. I would dream he was cheating on me, but I didn't know that I had that gift. Like, I'm a dreamer and I have the gift of dreams, and Jesus shows me things and prophetic things and shows me things that are going to happen, that are happening in my dreams, but I didn't know that yet because I didn't have a relationship with Jesus yet. But I had the gifts, but I didn't know that they were gifts, and I just thought that I was being jealous or paranoid, and so I was dreaming about it, right? But he was actually cheating on me. So I get pregnant at my mother's house. When we got back together there, I get pregnant. My youngest daughter, she was around 3 because I got pregnant again in 1986. She was born in 83. I got pregnant in 1986. Okay, so and then when we were together, it was horrible. He would smell bad. He would smell like drug. He wouldn't smell clean, like he'd been doing drugs, and there was just a distinct smell I can't describe, associated with drug and alcohol abuse and all that in their system, and it's horrible. And one time I was with him, and I was like at my mother's house, and I was like cringing, and like I thought, like when he moved his arm, I thought I saw, like I was looking at his arm, and I thought I saw a track mark. But see, I didn't know about drugs, and I didn't know about tracks and stuff like that on the arms. I didn't know. So when he came back to me, he was now shooting up. Okay. So now the second time back, when he came back to me, he started shooting up. So he went in the streets and he started shooting up, and now he comes back to me. Okay, so I got pregnant, and I tell him I'm pregnant, and here's what he does. You're getting an abortion. You're getting an abortion. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm not getting abortion. That's not even something that we can think of. Like, that is like way out there. That's like not even a thought. Like, I wasn't raised getting abortions. I'm like, we had 3 kids. Why do you want me to get an abortion? Because you're getting an abortion. We're not having any more kids. We're not having any more kids, and you're getting an abortion. And I kept saying, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. And I was afraid, right? And he didn't like, he was more verbally and emotionally abusive than physically abusive. He slapped me that one time, and I do have, he did slap me again, but that's later on down the road. I'll tell you about that. But mostly it was verbal, so I wasn't like beat on physically all the time. Okay, so that's not the type of abuse, but although it did happen a couple times. So so then so I said I wasn't, and he forced me, and he was Yeshua, and I was so afraid of him that I was like, fine, like okay. So it came to the day where I had to get an abortion, and I was so sick, and I prayed to God, and I'm like, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, please. And so I was so upset about it, and they gave me Valium to take before, and I wouldn't take the Valium, right? So I didn't take the Valium, and the morning that we went, I had the Valium in my hand, and so the day before that we went, no, the day before I had to get the abortion, he had to take me. So we went, and all this is happening. I'm living at my mother's house. We're in her basement. She knows nobody in the house knows anything that's going on. The kids don't know what's going on. My parents don't know what's going on, but it's just me and him. Okay. I did not tell anyone. I did not confide in anyone. And I don't know you if you've been abused, I don't know if most people do this, but I know with me, I did it. I never ever told a single solitary soul of my of the abuse I was going through all the 13 years of my marriage. I never confided in anyone. I didn't really have a best friend to talk to. I didn't I had my kids, okay? And of course I'm not going to tell my kids I'm outside of what they could already see. I'm not going to go to them and say, oh, dad's abusing me. Blah, blah. I didn't even talk to them about it. I just tried to be a positive mom. I just try, you just put your A game on, you put your A face, even though you're broken, and you're this is triggering me to be emotional, and I didn't think that I could be emotional because it happened so many years ago, but now that I'm talking about my kids, it's making me emotional. Anyway, this is what you do. You act strong, you act like nothing's happening, and you put your A game and your A face on so that nobody gets wind of it, and you just try to be a mother, and you just like, you're just in fight mode, flight or fight. You're not fighting, you're not going to fight, you're not going to run away, you're not going to leave, so you're just going to try to fight and stay and just deal with it, right? So you're in survival mode. Always, you live in survival mode, okay? And that stays with you afterward. Okay, so the day before I got the abortion, I had to go. So he brought me because they had to stick something in me to open me up, to open me up so that they could go in um and do the abortion. So they stuck this thing in me, and they explained everything, and they gave me a value. They put a volume in my hand and said, take this tomorrow morning before you come so you can be relaxed and all this stuff. I went in the bathroom, and after they gave me that thing, I sat in the bathroom and I cried my eyes out at that place. I sat on the floor and I'm like, forgive me, forgive me. I was asking God and Jesus to forgive me over and over and over and over again. I'm like, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me, forgive me. Okay, so then he takes me home. We go home. The next morning we come back, but I'm sitting at the table next morning, getting ready to come. I have the volume in my hand, and I have it clenched in my hand, and I just had some toast. They told me to eat something light. I had toast and something to drink, and then he took me. I never took the Valium, stuck it in my pocket. I would not take Valium. Okay, so when I get there, they ask me, did you take a Valium? I said no. And they go, wow, you're strong. I said, no, I don't want to. I'm fine. And so they go, okay, wow, you're strong, right? So they take me in there and they perform this horrendous procedure on me with a vacuum and all that stuff. Horrendous. Okay, so I get done with that, and now I have to sit there for like 30 minutes to an hour in the recovery room. which is really like it's an office. It's not a hospital. It was like an abortion office clinic. It was a clinic. So I sit there and he's sitting there. He doesn't say one word, okay? He doesn't say one word. He doesn't try to console me or anything, okay? So then he drives me home, right? And all the way home, not a single word, not a single sound. It was like you could hear a pin drop. He didn't say he's sorry. He didn't say it's going to be okay, baby. Don't worry. I'm here. Nothing, 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 nothing. No support, no emotional support, nothing. So then he takes me home. He drops me off at home. Okay. So he brings me home and and he says, so I'm laying down and he says, and I see him getting dressed and he's putting on his cap. I'm like, where you going? And he goes, I'm going to work. And I'm like, I need you. I need you here. I need you to be with me today. I need you to stay with me today. And he's like, I'm going to work. I got to go to work. I'm going to work. Right? So he goes to work, but he was fooling around with somebody at his job. And that's probably why I had to get an abortion. So he went to work, left me, honey, to deal with this abortion all by myself. I had no one to talk to, never told my mom, never told a single person in my house. I had no one to talk to. No one. No one to confide in, no one to console me. And I got no consolation from him as well. So I dealt with this abortion all by myself, okay? Of course, God was with me and he helped me through. Of course, God was with me always. That's how I made it through this whole ordeal of this marriage. Okay, so then my mother calls down the stairs. She goes, Alice, Alice, you're home? I'm like, yeah, because I didn't go to work that day because I had an abortion. And so she's like, oh, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just have cramps. And she goes, oh, okay. And that was it. That's all I told her. I just had cramps. That's what I said. I was crying my eyes out downstairs. Okay. So then, all right. So, after that happened, the abortion happened. Uh, we move into a house. We move into a house that is like about a quarter of a mile down from my mother's house. Okay, it's in walking distance of my mom's house. We moved there. Okay, so while we're in that house, here's all the beautiful things that happened while we were at that house. Okay, so that was in about 1988. That was in about 1988, okay? If you're still with me, I appreciate you so much. Appreciate you so much, okay? I'm sorry, but I'm about halfway through. I'm going to try to be quicker than halfway through. I'm going to just try to go through this. But it's a lot. You see, it's a lot. Okay. So in about 1988, 89, 88, 88. We're in the it's the red house. It's a red house. I call it the red house. Okay, so we moved there and Jehovah's Witness come to the door. Okay, so remember the man that he used to talk to in the apartment, that Jehovah's Witness man? Well, he found us, and he found us because they go door to door, and so he came there and he goes, so I was going through so much with my husband that at that house I did then talk to him, and he goes, "Do you remember me? I used to used to talk to your husband." And I'm like, yeah. And so I said, come in. And I started talking to him. And then because I was so broken, um, and so in such a vulnerable state, I began talking to him. And I became a Jehovah's Witness. Okay. So I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire, basically. But that's a whole nother story of me being a Jehovah's Witness, okay? 7 years. But okay, so I start talking to him and we start studying together. So I think, oh, we're going to study together, and so this is going to be good. So I think he's going to change, you know? And so they come to the house and my husband start studying together, and I'm like so excited, and I think this is the thing. This is the thing that's going to turn him around, and we're going to have a happy marriage, and it's going to be good, right? No, no, Alice, no. That's not going to happen. So I'm studying and studying, and then he starts dropping off. So they come to study, and he doesn't study. He goes out. He leaves, and I'm like, they're coming. They're coming today. He goes, I'm going out. I'm going out. I'm like, but you're not going to be here. What am I going to tell them? I don't know. I'm going out. I'm going out. And he would leave, and then I would started studying by myself. He would always leave, go out, go get high, do whatever he does, and so then I just took care of myself, and I was studying with them. And I studied to the point where then but that's later. I actually got that baptized and all that stuff. So but not until we moved. But while we were in that house, I was just studying, okay? So me and him got a job. We got a job together at a restaurant, okay? And we worked at a restaurant together, me and him. And I would waitress at that restaurant, and he would do the maintenance, like he would do the cleaning, and he would iron the tablecloths because it was a high-end restaurant. It was a French restaurant, and they had white tablecloths on the tables, and he would wash those, dry them and iron them and fold them and get them ready and stack them, and for the waitresses to like reset tables and all that stuff, right? And so but I started busing, and then I was waitressing there. So we were working together, but yeah, but finally he got fired from that job. But there was one time while were working there together, and he was fooling around with somebody there, I found out. And so I confronted him downstairs. I went downstairs with him, and I was like helping him with the linen. And I started confronting him about fooling around with the girl, the other waitress there. And he pushed me up against the wall downstairs, and there was nobody there, nobody saw. He pushed me up against the wall, and he was on me like this, and he goes, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. And like he was gonna like I felt like he was gonna beat the crap out of me. And I think that if I wasn't we were in a public building like that, he might have beat the crap out of me. Okay. So but he just scared me to death, and I just shut up. I just shut up, and I never said another word about it. Okay. It's like, fine, I don't care. Fool around with that if you want. Like, I don't like, I'm not gonna say a word, you know? So I just shut up. So finally he got fired from that job because he's a raving alcoholic. So he was tipping the bottles. Like, there was a bar downstairs, there was a bar and a function room downstairs, and so but the main dining room was upstairs, and the cook was upstairs, the kitchen and all that was upstairs. So but while he was working downstairs, he would sneak behind the bar and like just tip those bottles and drink, right? He would drink. So and then they figured it out. They could smell it on him and stuff. He was getting high at work, getting like tipsy at work from drinking their liquor, and they finally figured it out, and he got fired. So, but I kept working there. I kept working. And so now I'm the only one working. Okay. So, so he would, I would, and plus not only was I not just, that was a part-time job. I was also, working as a secretary at another company. Okay. So I would do that during the day, and then work in the evening and weekends at the restaurant. So I would come home from working on the weekend with like, a good amount of money, tips, like $90 or whatever. Tips. I would get some 80, $90 some weekend nights. Okay. And so, I would come home, and he would say, and we only had one car, and it was a car that I bought. And he would say, give me your money. And I'm like, no, I don't have any money. He goes, give me your money. You just made some money. Give me your money. And, I would be like, I said, I just have my tips. He goes, give me your tips. Give me some. And I was like, this is all the money that we have. Like, I have to have this money. Like, we need this money. And he would be like, no, and he'd be forcing me. He said, give me my money. And of course, I was afraid that he might hit me. So I would give him my money, and I would be cringing. I would be crying. Like, yeah, I would be like, oh my God. Like, and then he would be, give me your keys. Give me your car keys. And I would be like, no. And he goes, give me your keys now. So I'd have to give him my keys. So he had my money, he had my keys, and he would go out and get trashed. and come home. Sometimes he wouldn't come home until morning. I would be getting up, getting ready for work, right? Like 6 o'clock in the morning, he'd be rolling in. When I'm getting up and getting ready for work in the bathroom, he'd come strolling in because he was out all night. This is what I was living. I mean, oh my gosh, it got so bad, everyone, so bad. And so then, while we were living in that house, what else happened? Um, okay, so one day he took my car, he brought it back, and he tells me, I dented your car. He got in an accident with my car and drove it home, and it had a big dent in it. Yes, I was so disgusted. Okay, what else happened in that house? Okay, so he was he had this friend that he worked with um at another job. He found this other job. He had this friend that he worked with at this other job, right? Not at the restaurant anymore. He got a new job and he was working with this guy, and that was short-lived. That job was short-lived. But anyway, he made friends. And this guy, him and his girlfriend came over to my house, and um so my husband, Bobby, he would be like, "Oh, this guy's so nice. He's so nice, and his girlfriend. Maybe we could do stuff together or whatever." And so both came over, and we sat and talked, and I met her, and she was cool. She had long hair. She was Caucasian. She had long hair. Okay, so long straight hair, and she was really nice. I liked her. I liked her a lot, and she was cool, right? So then, so time goes on, and one morning, when he's out on his escapades, his nightly escapade, and I'm getting ready for work, and I used to cry, everybody. I used to be in bed, and I used to be crying, and I used to pray. Prayer is very powerful. That's um that's actually, I don't know how many lessons I gave you, so four. Lesson 5. Prayer is powerful. I used to be in bed praying, and I would pray, God, please. I was so afraid. I'm like, please don't let my life be like this forever. He was not, I'm like, please. And, he's still out, and it's like middle of the night. And I'm like, I don't know whether to worry about him or to just like be glad he's not there. You know what I mean? Like, and so I would be praying, saying that please don't let my whole life be like this. Please help me, make a way out for me, make a way out for me, make a way out for me. Because in the scriptures it says that you should stay with your husband, but unless God would make a way out, like God could make a way out for you, right? So and call you to peace, like God, it says, be called to peace in the scriptures. And so I'm like, please, please make a way out for me. I don't want to live my whole life. Am I going to live my whole life like this? I did not see a way out. So let me tell you, you may be in a situation where that is very toxic and abusive, and you may not be seeing a way out, and it feels like you're just going to be in that situation for the rest of your life, and you can't see a way out. But I'm here to tell you that there is life after that. There is good living after that, and there is a way out, because God can make a way out. And let me tell you, God did make a way out, but it's a little later on. But he did make a way out, and he heard my prayers. Okay, but I'm gonna have to go through some things first. Okay, so let's keep going. Okay, so this friend of his that was at this job with this girl that I met, okay? So one morning, I'm getting ready for work. He comes strolling in, and he comes strolling in with this friend guy and a girl, okay? And I'm in the bathroom getting ready, so I don't see them. I can hear them. I can hear the noise. I can hear them. And then he comes back there, and he's saying that so and so is here. I'm like, okay. And so he goes. They're in the living room. So the three of them are sitting in the living room, and Bobby's kind of pacing back and forth, and he goes and he checks on what I'm doing, and then he goes back in there and sits and hangs with them, right? And so then I get dressed. I'm all dressed. I'm ready for work. And I come out and I look into the living room and I say hi to his guy friend who I can see very clearly. I can see him, okay? And then the girl was sitting on the couch and she had long hair like his girlfriend had, like I remembered, and her hair was covering her face. So I couldn't really see her face, but it was covering, and she was like kind of leaning there, like out of it and stuff, and kind of like even laying down on the couch a little bit. And I'm like, what is wrong with her? Like, and then I'm like, bye, I'll see you guys later. Like, hi. And I thought she would say hi to me, but she didn't. She didn't say one word, and she was laying down and she was like out of it, right? And I'm like, what is wrong with her? So I leave and I go to work, right? So the next day I get a phone call. Bobby is out on one of his escapades again at night, and I get but in the meantime I found hotel tickets. I found a hotel matches in his pockets or something. I found hotel matches and I'm like, what is going on with this hotel matches? Like he's cheating on me. He's cheating on me, right? And so then so then I knew for sure because the girl calls me. The girlfriend of this guy friend of his calls me and he's like, hi. She's like, hi. I'm like, hi. I'm like, how are you? And she's like, fine. She goes, was I over your house the other night? And I'm like, yeah, you know you were. Like, why are you saying that? And she goes, what was I doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What was you doing? I'm like, you were kind of laying on the couch. Like something was wrong with you. I said, was something wrong with you? And she goes, no. She's like, Alice, you are so gullible. And I'm like, what? What? And she goes, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. They said that that was me, but it wasn't me. And I'm like, it wasn't. And she goes, no. She goes, you're so gullible. She goes, it wasn't me. It was your husband's girl is messing around with that girl, and they pretended that it was me so that you wouldn't know, but that was somebody that your husband's messing around with him and he brought to your house. And I was like, oh my word. So, yep, that's what he did. He brought his girlfriend to our house and let her come in there pretending that it was his friend's girlfriend. Okay? I confronted him about it and deny. I'm not messing around with her. Da, 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 da. Deny. Okay. What else happened in that house? Okay, so the drug stuff. Okay, so I used to see spoons in my drawer, in our drawer, right? There would be spoons and the spoons would be black. Okay, so like why are all our spoons black? And I would be like, I don't want to use a spoon. It's black. Like it's like black. And I'm like, I can't use the spoon. I don't want to use the spoon. And I kept going through the drawers looking for a regular spoon, right? And I just keep pulling up these spoons that have that's black in the spoon. And I'm like, why are my spoons like what's going on? And so one night, Bobby was in the bathroom and he says, I'm gonna go take a shower. He always used to say he's taking a shower when I'm like knocking on the bathroom door, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? He's like, I'm taking a shower. And he would always say that, but he would always come out smelling like funky, like he wasn't taking a shower. He was always getting high in the bathroom and saying he's taking a shower, but he wasn't really taking a shower. I'm like, you don't smell like you're taking I don't smell soap, nothing. And so one occasion he's in the bathroom and then I hear a thump. I hear a thump, right? And so I peek in, I open the door, and here he is, stark naked, laying on the floor, convulsing, or like he's in a seizure, like his whole body's shaking. He's laying on the floor, stark naked, and I could see a needle hanging out of his arm, and there's like a rope around, like a thing around it too, like I don't know, rubber band or whatever, and then the needle just kind of hanging, like just hanging there, right? And I was I was like, oh my God. And I shut the door real quick and he's like shaking because he just like overdosed, right? I'm like, oh my God, that is the first time I had ever actually seen it. And I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know what to do. I called. So here I am. I was like studying with Jehovah's Witness. I'm becoming like one of them, right? I'm like a Jehovah's Witness. And so I called an elder from the congregation and I'm like, can you come over here, please? Can you come over here? And so they're like, yeah, well, I'll come over right now. I'll come over right now. And he came over. And by the time he came over, Bobby had gotten up and put a robe on his body. So he got up, put a robe on, and then they talked to him. Now I go now something, and they were talking to him and all that stuff. Now on one occasion I went into the bathroom, and now after this happened, I'm going in the bathroom and I'm looking for clues and I'm looking for stuff. And I'm like, does he keep his stuff up here? Does he keep his stuff here? So I looked on top of the shelf. Like you know how in the bathroom, like you'll have a cabinet, a mirror cabinet above your sink, that like not one that sets into the wall, but one kind of sticks out so that you can put stuff on top. And I looked on top of there, and there was like spoon. There was a spoon there that he uses, and some other paraphernalia. I didn't find a needle or anything like that, but it made me so sick and disgusted and scares me. And so what else happened? So I go to the elder's house and I'm like, I don't, something else happened in that house. And I went to the elder's house and me and the kids spent the night there. And I told him that I at the elder's house with his wife and kids because something really bad happened and I got so scared. So I went there. It might have been that occasion actually. So I spent the night there, and I said I don't want to, like, I want to leave him. I want to leave. And they're like, "No, you can't leave him." I said, "But he cheated on me. Like I have proof now." I'm sitting with the elder and I'm telling them that I have proof because somebody told me, like, he brought his girlfriend to the house and I saw her. That's proof. And he goes, "No, no, because the Bible says, oh, just you can only separate on grounds of fornication, right? Or adultery, on grounds of adultery." And I said, "But he committed adultery, so can I leave him, please? Can I leave him now?" And they're like, "No, you can't. You can't leave him because it's just not biblical." And but he brought his girlfriend. I know it. I know it. He goes, "Yeah, but you have to actually catch him in the act." Like they were telling me that I had to catch him having sex with somebody. I had to actually catch him in the act. And I'm like, it didn't sound right to me, people, but like, I was listening to everything they said, so I did not leave him at that time. Okay, so all that stuff happens. And so now, and in the meantime, and in the meantime, I was having all these other issues because I was a Jehovah's Witness, and that opened up a whole door of demonic presence in my house. I was having night terrors, I was having because I brought all the Jehovah's Witness books into that house because when I started studying with them and I was bringing their books in the house and I was going out in field service and all these things were coming into the house and I was taking the kids out because it was an escape for me. It was an escape from him. It was an escape, and I'm thinking like, okay, these people are befriending me. They're my friends, and I can like escape and go out in service and go to the meetings and I can be away from him. So I think that, and I was so vulnerable, and so I clung to that organization big time. And so and so that opened the door for demonic presence. So like I said, I was getting night terrors and I was getting that paralyzed feeling, paralysis. I was getting sleep paralysis on the regular. One time I felt a thing, something sit on the bed. I felt something sit on the bed, and I had my back to him, but I could feel something sitting on the bed. And then I turned around and there was nothing there. And there were demons. There were demons in my house. They were torturing me. And other stuff happened with that too. But I'm going to tell you all of that in a different video when I make a Jehovah's Witness video, when I was a Jehovah's Witness. Okay. So yeah. So so um yeah, they said I couldn't leave him. So finally we moved into another house. Okay. we moved into now we moved into, I call it the gray house. And because we couldn't afford, like I had to leave because I couldn't afford it. And so no, I remember. I wanted to live in my grandmother's house. The gray house is my grandmother's house. And it was right across the street from my mother. So now I was right across the street from my mother. I was closer. So we moved in there. And and then every time I did something, I feel like, oh, it's gonna be good now. It's gonna be good now. It's gonna be good now. And it's not. It's not gonna be good. It's not. So I'm like, okay, now I'm in my grandmother's house. I'm gonna feel more at ease. I'm gonna feel safer. Like my grandmother, she had passed away, and they sold that house, so it was being rented out. So, but I was raised around that house, so it was gonna be like a familiarity, like a comfort supposedly. So so I moved into that house, and here are the things that happened in that house. Okay. In that house, I started working in New Bedford. That's where Brad was getting all his drugs too. That is a city. It's about 30 minutes from where we lived. And so he would go, I started working there at a law firm as a secretary. And so he would want to use my car, and so he would drop me off and then pick me up in the evening, and he would be like, I'm gonna pick you up. So we would be there. I would go outside and wait for him to pick me up, and I would be so embarrassed because it would be 30 minutes. I would be waiting outside for him to pick me up. He did not care. He would be out getting high, doing his thing in New Bedford, and pick me up when he got good and ready, okay? And I would be out there for 30 minutes sometimes. So that was abusive, yes. And then what else happened in that house? He um he got so he wasn't working, and um he lost his job. He stopped working. So he would just sit home and drink all day. And I would come home from work, and he would just be like drunk, drunk, drunk. Um uh there would be like I think I stopped working in New Bedford. Yeah, and then so he wasn't bringing me anymore, but so I would be coming home from work from some place else, and he would be drunk as a skunk, and he would make boilers, okay? And see, I learned all this stuff from being with a drug addict and an alcoholic. So he would make boilers, which is he would put I think it's Hennessy or Jack Daniel, one of the two. And he would mix it with beer. And that, man, that was the stinkiest drunk you'd ever want to smell. It was horrendous, okay? And he'd have it next to him when I come home. He would just be drunk, and his friend would be hanging out with him that he met down the street that he got friendly with, and they'd be drunk. And so I would come home. I didn't know what I was gonna find when I came home. I didn't know what that was. That was when it was really going downhill very, very quickly. And and one night he was coming home, right, from being drunk. He was coming home from somewhere, and I watched him out the window. Like it must have took uh five a good 5 minutes for him to get into the door. Okay, so he would come up the stairs and roll back down the stairs. Come up the stairs and roll back down the stairs. It was like this kind of drunk, and come up the stairs, roll back down the stairs, okay? Fall on the ground. I was so embarrassed because my mother was across the street, my parents, and I was like, are they, and the porch light wasn't on, so good. But I was like, are they going to see him? Are they going to see this? And I was watching him out the window, and I was terrified, and I was embarrassed all in one. Finally, he makes it into the house. I run up the stairs. I go to bed. Okay. This man, I don't know. I can't say that it was this occasion, but it is possible to be raped by your husband. Okay. So yeah, he forced himself on me. um on more than one occasion when he was drunk, I would say no, and he would force himself on me, and it would be putrid. Okay. Um, so that happened. Another thing that happened in that house is that, okay, so like I said, I was with studying, I became baptized while I was in the, so he went with me. He went with me to be baptized, to the big convention, right? And I'm like, so I was baptized at that convention. And so, yeah, I thought that my life would change, then didn't. And so then the next convention comes around, right? Maybe a year later, the next convention comes around. And I'm like, I'm gonna go to the he said he would go to the convention. So I'm like, oh, he's gonna go to the convention. So I'm so glad. He's gonna change. It's gonna change. I'm so excited. And the elder's wife, who I always had been talking to, the elder that talked to me when he overdosed that time in the Red House, that elder, I would talk to him all the time about stuff and confide in him. And so his wife, I was friends with his wife. And I'm sorry, but my lips are like they're feeling dry right now. So I'm gonna do a little this real quick. So I would confide in him and I would talk to her. So they would be like, make get it, see if you can get him to come to the convention. So I'd ask him like, would you go to the convention? Would you please go to the convention? And he's like, yeah, I'll go. And so he said he would go, and I was like all excited and stuff that he was going to go. And now this is the thing. This is the thing that's going to change this man. Okay. See, you're in perpetual hope. And but they I mean, I'm not going to say that like nobody has ever changed, but there's a 99% chance that they ain't going to change. Okay. So so then I asked him. So then it's coming around closer and closer. And I asked him, I said, are you going to go? And now he says, no, I'm not going. I was heartbroken because that was my last hope. That was our last chance. That was the thing that was going to turn this marriage around. That was the thing that was going to make him stop doing drugs, make him stop abusing me, make him stop drinking. That was the thing that was going to change everything, right? And he said no. So I go upstairs and I call the elder's wife. And I call her up and I'm sitting on the bed talking to her. And I'm like, he's not going to come. He's not. He said he's not coming. And I was all upset. And she's like, and so he heard me. He went upstairs and he was listening and he heard me. So he comes walking in the bedroom really mad. And I'm sitting on the bed on the phone with her. So he comes in and he starts smacking me. Like he didn't punch me or anything, punch me, but like with flat hands, smacking me, and I'm on the bed like this. I'm curled up. I'm like this, laying on the bed. The phone flew over there, but the phone is on the bed, and she could hear everything. And I'm like this on the bed, covering my face to not let my face get hit. And he slapping me, slapping me, like I'm like a little kid or something. Like you could no, not like a little kid, because you shouldn't even do that to a child, right? No, you don't be slapping like that. And so and he's slapping me. And so then he walks out. That girl was still on the phone. And I picked up the phone and I'm like, hello? And she's like, Alice, I heard everything. Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm crying. And like the slaps, they didn't really hurt that much. My feelings were hurt more than the slap hurt. Okay. And so and I talked to her and everything, and she felt so bad. And like, and I'm like, I can't believe that I can't leave him. Like, I can't leave him. I can't leave him, right? So then here's what happens for me to escape my abusive marriage. Here it comes now. Okay. So we couldn't afford that place anymore. Like he wasn't working and I was just working by myself, and we didn't have the I couldn't afford to pay. I couldn't pay. I was got evicted, okay? We were getting evicted. So my mother knew that we were moving, right? So I told her that we had to move and stuff, and she says, "Okay." So I was like, I had been looking for a place to live, and he wasn't doing anything. He was just getting drunk. He thought that he was just gonna ride on my back. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she's wherever she goes, I'm gonna go. You know, she's taking care of it, and I'm just gonna go behind her. You know, like just gonna piggyback on me, right? That's what he thought. And so, but God had, Jesus had a different plan. So, um, so I call this apartment, and I make arrangement with them, tentative, didn't put any money down or anything, but they said maybe you can move in. It was all tentative. Nothing was in no writing. I didn't sign any contracts, no leases or anything like that. But the next day I had to leave, right? So I'm sitting down and I'm like, I think I'm just gonna call that place tomorrow. I think I'm gonna go there, right? And I get down on my knees, and I'm in the living room, my knees on my knees, and I'm praying with my elbows on the couch. And I've got my head down and I'm praying. I'm praying, I'm praying. Dear God, please help us. Please don't let us be out on the street. Please, Heavenly Father. In Jesus' mighty name, please don't let us be out on the street. Please help us. Please protect me and my children. Please stay with us, Heavenly Father. Please stay with us. And please don't let us be out. Please don't let us be homeless. And please don't let us be on the street. In Jesus' name, I pray. Okay, soon as I finish that prayer, soon as I say amen, the phone rings. The phone rang, and it was my mother. And my mother says, "Hi, Alice." I'm like, "Hi." She goes, "Don't you have to move tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, I don't have an exact place yet, but I think I'm going to go to the apartment, but it's not exact yet." And she says, I'm getting teary-eyed because my mother passed away in 2019. And she saved my life. She saved my life that day. And she says, "You know what?" She goes, "You're coming over here. You're going to come here and live with me, you and the kids." She goes, "But one condition, he can't come." I was like, "Ma, thank you so much. I don't want him to come. I don't want him to come. So thank you so much." And I did not tell him. The next day came. I packed up my stuff and I started walking that stuff across the street to my mother's house. And he is just watching. And I said, "I'm going to my mother's, and you can't come. I'm going." And and he wasn't able to follow me or piggyback after me, and that was my protection, and that was my escape. And me and my kids moved in and lived with my mother. We stayed there for about 4 years, and I just had to get strong. And I and he went off on his own. He called us one time, um and talked to me and the kids, and then that was it, and he was out of our life. He just went about his business. He moved to Boston. He was still doing drugs. He was still getting high. And we saw him 10 years later. My son, in 2002, he went to Navy, and he was coming out of boot camp, and he came to my oldest son's boot camp graduation with his parents. And that was the first time we had seen him. But we were cordial and everything, and it was all fine. It was all good. And but he cut the boys' hair and everything, and he did his thing with his kids. But and I had my little son, and he was carrying my baby. Now in 2001, in 2000, um, okay, so in 1997, I got a job. I prayed for that, and I got a really good job. And the job moved me to South Carolina. So me and my kids moved to South Carolina, and I had so much healing to do, everybody. I had so much healing to do, but Jesus healed me. I was depressed. I went to counseling from that and from being a Jehovah's Witness because I had left that organization too in 95. So I Jesus healed me of depression in 2004. Just took that cloud right out from away from me. And I forgave my husband. I had forgiveness for him. I didn't hold anything against him because, you know, I was healed and I forgave him. And I forgave him way before Jesus healed me of depression. Um, but in 2000, but it did affect my future relationships. I was in PTSD mode. I was in um protection mode. I was never going to let anybody take my peace away from when God called me to peace. I felt peace, and I was never going to let anybody disturb my peace ever again. So had a wall up. I was very protective, and even with my kids, I'm like, no, 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 and they're like, Ma, you don't let us like you don't let nothing go on. You like so, and I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, I'm in PTSD. Like I am protective mode. I can't let anything disturb my peace, and I can't let peace unrest come into my home ever again, and so but I mean they get it, they understand. My daughter, she gets it, and they're all on their own now. Like this is years ago, but okay, so in 2000 I met Pensy. I'm gonna call him Pensy. And when we moved to South Carolina, he lived in an apartment across from me. So I met him in the year 2000. We started dating, and we had a child. I got pregnant, and we moved in together. And still, I'm like, I don't know if I should be living with somebody not married. I kind of felt guilty about that because Jesus had saved me, but I still didn't have a I wasn't in a close relationship like I am now. Like it was, it still wasn't there yet. I was still in the world doing things, when you first get saved, you're saved, but you're not like building your relationship. You have to actually build your relationship with Jesus, work on it and communicate and read your Bible and all that stuff. And I wasn't like doing all of that yet. So I was with Pensy. So we had a son, and so we moved in together. And so I'm telling you this because um, the triggers were still there from my abusive marriage. Okay, that's why I'm telling you this. So we lived together, and I kept getting triggers. Like everything that went wrong, I was like, well, I moved with him like maybe in the summer, but like within a few months, like by like December, just before Christmas came in December, I was um I left him. I left. So this is how I did it. So he lost his job. Like, okay, so he one day he was looking for a belt, and he's like, I can't find my belt, and he's banging around, right? That was a trigger for me. And I was like, oh no, oh no. I don't ever want to live like this again. I don't ever want to live like this again. And so, but he wasn't ever verbally abusive to me or anything like that, but still, he still has narcissistic ways. He still had like his little things that he used to do, but it wasn't nothing like, Bobby. Okay. So, but he did like act affectionate toward me and stuff like that and communicate with me. He acted like I was his girlfriend, like I was his partner. Okay. So that triggered me. I'm like, no, 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 what's happening here? And so then he punched he had like an anger issue too, but not toward me. And he punched his manager at one job in the face, and then that came back to haunt him. So he's told me he couldn't have his job. So he was on probation from his job and stuff like that. So finally he was like lost his job, he was fired. And so he comes up to me and says that, can you hold us down for a little bit until I find another job? And I'm like, okay, okay. But in the meantime, I had already been triggered. I was already afraid, and I had already made plans to leave because I was already triggered by this guy. Because when he punched that guy in the face, it was on his record, and they kind of were like gonna press charges against him. So the police came to pick him up. And I was like, the police are knocking at the door, and I'm like, oh gosh, oh gosh. And he's in bed, and I'm like, yes. He goes, is Pensy here? And I'm like, no. And I was like trying to cover for him, but then they're like, and I had my little baby boy, and I was like, I wasn't gonna mess my stuff up with my child. And he goes, it's Pensy. He wasn't even a year old yet. He was born in 2001, and this was all happening in 2001. And I left Pensy December of 2001, so he wasn't even a year yet. Um, so um, the police officer goes, if he's here and you're covering for him, and if you're not going to tell us that he's here, then you could like be held accountable, and you could even like lose your child or whatever, and be in very serious trouble. And I'm like, he's here, he's here. I'm like, I ratted him out. I'm like, he's here, go, he's right back there, go get him. Right. So they go back there and they get him and they arrest him. And so and then like I didn't talk to him. He finally came home like a day later or something, and I was like, he's like, you didn't even ask about me. You didn't even call the police station. You didn't check on me. You didn't come get me. You didn't do nothing. I'm like, what was I supposed to do? What do you want me to do? But by then, I was so like, I was in like PTSD mode from my marriage, okay, from Bobby. All I could think of was, I'm going to live like this again, like the way I lived with Bobby. I cannot do this again. So, then, finally, he loses his job. He comes up to me, he asks me if I could cover for him, but by then it was like I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, whatever, whatever. But I already knew I was going to leave him. I already had got an apartment. I already had worked it out with the landlord. I already had done all of that, and this is how I left. And I know this is messed up, guys. This is kind of messed up what I did, but I was so scared. Okay, I was scared, and so I made plans to leave him. He was in bed. I said, well, I'm going to go to the store and get some stuff off of Layaway. That's what I told him. But what I was actually doing was I was getting a police officer to come to the house with me so I can get my things and leave, because I didn't know if he was going to act out. I didn't know what his reaction would be when I told him I was leaving. So, and I had my apartment all set up. I had my apartment ready to move into. So I came and I walk in the house with these police. I walk back in the house with police officer, and I go to him and I wake him up. I said, I'm leaving. He goes, what do you mean? And he's like waking up out of his sleep. He goes, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, I'm leaving. He goes, what do you mean you're leaving? I said, I'm leaving. And then the police officer is there, and I get up and he jumps out of bed and he goes, yeah. And then he was so shocked. He was so shocked and so mad. He didn't see it coming. He didn't know what was happening. And I just got my stuff and walked out. And the police officer said, you can't, like, I can't stay here all day while you get yourself. You just get your bare essentials and leave. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I just got my clothes and stuff and I left. And he says, so Pensy was asking him questions. He goes, can she take all this stuff? Can she take this? Like, all the furniture was mine. It was mine from my apartment before. And the living room, everything was my stuff. It was all my stuff. And the dining room table was his. But the other stuff was mine. And so the police officer told him that if you don't want her to take any of this stuff, she can't take it because it's partly yours, and you can say no right now, and she can't take any of it. Just her personal belongings, her clothes and stuff. And he's like, nope, I don't want her to take it. And I was like, how could he do that? Like, he knows it's all my stuff. So that was fine. So we left and we slept on the so he called me afterwards and tried to see me, and I was like, come talk to me, come tell me, let's talk about this. What is wrong? Tell me what is wrong. We can fix it. Let's talk. And I was like, no, no, no. And I wouldn't even talk to him because all I was thinking about was, I'm never going to live like this again. Okay. So I left, and That was it. And I always thought that I ruined that relationship. I always thought that um I ruined it, but I tried to see him again, like way later. He moved to Pennsylvania, and that's why I call him Pensy, because he's from Pennsylvania. And he moved to Pennsylvania, and I went to visit him with with our child, with our son, and it like he just was kind of mean to me when I was there, and I'm like, I'm leaving. Like I came because I thought we could fix this, and like no, so I left, and we never fixed it, and I always thought I ruined it, but come to find out later, a few years ago, that it wasn't even like he had another son while he was with me. When I had my son, he was having another son at the same time, and so like I don't even feel bad anymore because you were just like dogging me out too. But anyway, so let's get back to yeah, so that it triggered my other relationships, okay? And and so let's get back to so 2004 I was healed of depression. 2007 I bought my own house. Me and my Pensy son moved here. My other kids, they got big. They went on their own. They have their own families, and they're in South Carolina with me. They moved to South Carolina with me, and I was a single mom here. So, but now, then I was a single mom to Pensy's son. So, but it was good. God took care of us so much so, and I bought my house, and that's where I live now. I still live in my house, and I love it, and we're taken care of. We're fine. He's grown. My Pensy, me and Pensy's son is grown now. He's like gonna be 20 this year. Started college, and he did some college, and he's gonna do, he's a good kid. So, a good man now. Gotta call him a man. He's gonna be 20 this year. Okay, so but Bobby, the abusive husband, called me um around 2013 after I moved into this house. He called me on the phone, and I hadn't talked to him for years and years, right? Ever since boot camp, my son's boot camp. And he called me and he said, I just wanted to call, and I was kind of still like protective, like, I had my walls up. And he called and said, I just wanted to call you and tell you that you were a good wife and a good mother. And I'm sorry. He apologized for everything. And I said, that's okay. I said, I forgave you a long time ago. I'm like, I'm fine. God has really blessed me. And then he got like kind of defensive. He goes, well, God's blessed me too. And I'm like, well, that's good. I'm like, I'm really glad. And so we ended on a good note, and I told him I forgave him, and so it was good. So I was so happy that I think he needed that closure. I think he needed that peace to know that he had been forgiven. And I'm so happy that that happened because 2015, 2016, he actually passed away. He passed away they found him in the bedroom, in his bedroom, in Boston, near Boston, where he was living. Yeah, he did, like, he was in Boston a lot, most of the time. And he, uh, he died from an overdose of drugs. He died from drugs. So his life didn't change, and it's a very sad thing. And lesson 5. No, this is lesson 6 now. Forgiveness. Please forgive the person who abused you. If not for them, for you, because in the Bible it says that forgive those others of their sins so God can forgive you of yours. So forgiveness is very, very, very important. You don't want to harbor that. You don't want to keep it in your heart. So forgiveness. And when he passed away, I went to his funeral with my kids, all my kids, even with Pensy's son. We all went. We went to his funeral, and stayed at his mother's house. They're still on good terms with me, his family, because they know that, she admires me for continuing on as a single mom and taking care of her grandchildren. She loves them. She always had them over in the summertime. Every summer they would stay with her. So they're very close to her, very, very close to her. She's a good grandma. And so, yeah, forgiveness. So that's my story of my abusive marriage and how I healed, how I was delivered, healed, and forgiveness and how I forgave. So, yeah, sorry this was long. I know it was long. It's an hour and a half. So I hope you were able to watch the whole thing. I pray that you were, because it's a good story, good lessons, and I will see you in my other videos. I'm gonna do a video on me as a Jehovah's Witness, okay? So, and how all that happened. So anyway, I love you guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.